moving on in Revelation. This has been you got some, Charlene, you got some new people, they want some books or you got?
Here's some. This is
Okay,
all-
they take them home or whatever they want to do.
Everyone's just been kind of using them. This will give us an outline. You can fill it in, take it home, whatever you want to do with it. Thank you.
Yeah, these are my study notes from years ago. They haven't changed in a while. We're going to chapter 12 is what we're doing. Chapter 12 is where we're going to start with. That's on about page 24. I don't know, it's my old study notes. Sometimes I've changed them a little bit, so I'm going to follow.
What chapter?
We're in chapter 12.
Okay.
I'll try to remember where the villains are because this is something new for me. There was such an interest,
It's on page 23.
such an interest in Revelation that, okay, well, we'll try my study notes and see how we do. So far, we've been doing all right, I think.
Yes.
You've been getting information from it all right? Let's see. Now, we left off in chapter 11 was in a heavenly scene. They're getting all wound up, you know, this seventh trumpet was blowing up there. They say, okay, it's time for the Lamb to return, preceded by the 7 bowl judgments. Those are the final of the judgments coming down. And we saw that in chapter 11, and then we go to chapter 12, and God says, okay, we got to share some more information. So that's what Revelation, people get confused about Revelation, is there's informational chapters stuck in the main storyline, which are the judgments during the prophecy. So chapter 12 is what you call an informational chapter. It's expounding on a person, place, or event is what it does. Now, let me get the slideshow going. There. And I call this one the Great Intermission because chapter 12 through 15 are nothing but informational chapters, expounding on something like TV's done in the past. They say, okay, they got the main storyline that says, meanwhile at the Batcave, or something like that. They'll take you there, they'll take you back. Or they'll say, this happened 20 years ago. Well, in this chapter, this happened 2,000 years ago. It's a spiritual story, and a lot of people read through this chapter, what the heck is it talking about? Well, they don't have the keys sometimes, because it takes a little understanding who is what in that chapter. Here's kind of the key for it. When you hear the woman being called in that chapter, it means Israel. When the sun is referenced, that's Jacob. When the moon is referenced, that's Rachel, the wife of Jacob. The 12 stars are the 12 tribes of Israel. Of course, most people know who the red dragon is. That's Satan. And the man-child, that's Jesus, who will rule over many nations. So when we read chapter 12, that's some of the keys. You'll see them there at the top for page, chapter 12. So kind of look at them if you need to. So let's read Revelation 12, 1 through 5. Then I witnessed in heaven a great event, of great significance. I saw a woman clothed, who's the one? Israel, clothed with the sun, that's Jacob, and the moon, Rachel, beneath her feet, and a crown of 12 stars, that's the tribes, on her head. She was pregnant, and she cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of birth. So we kind of know this is a flashback to 2,000 years ago, isn't it? So we continue on. Then I witnessed in heaven another significant event. I saw a large red dragon. We know who that is. And with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head. His tail swept away a third of the stars in the sky, and he threw them to the earth. He stood in front of the woman as she was about to give birth, ready to devour her baby as soon as it was born. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all nations with an iron rod. And her child was snatched away from the dragon and was caught up to God, to his throne. Now, that's the picture, a spiritual picture of what happened 2,000 years ago that John was given, which to him was just a few years ago. But it's a spiritual picture of earth in the past, about the crucifixion of Christ. Satan was ready to destroy the child. He knew that was his end. commanded. That was his number one thing to do, was to kill Christ. But the woman gave birth to the child. See that in verse 5. But the man later is resurrected, caught up to God's throne. So that's kind of a big summary, fast summary of what happened. So Satan's plan is now destroyed by the resurrection of Christ. He's utterly defeated. And as a result, we'll find out there's a war going on in heaven. He gets booted out of the heavenly realms. He no longer can accuse the saints before God. And now his anger focuses on Israel, who gave birth to the child, Jesus, who defeated him. So that's kind of a picture of what Revelation 12 is about, his anger. And the women fled to the wilderness, Israel. There God had prepared a place to care for 1,260 days, which is 3.5 Jewish years. Then there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. And the dragon lost the battle, and he and the angels was forced out of heaven. This great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, the one deceiving the whole world, was thrown down to earth with all his angels. Good news for heaven, but guess what? Bad news for people down here. So let's continue on. Then I heard a loud voice shouting across the heaven, "It has come at last, salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of Christ. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been thrown down to earth, the one who accuses them before our God day and night. And they defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony." That's very key. "And they did not love their lives so much. They were afraid to die." So the first part of the chapter goes back 2,000 years. Then it kind of flashes forward to, okay, this is going to happen now in the future. Satan kind of gets defeated. And he gets a little mad at the people of earth. And he takes his anger out on Israel. And we read this several times. Matthew 24, 15 through 22. This is what David prophesied about Israel. A day's coming where they're going to have to flee. That's in the last 3.5 years of tribulation. The day is coming when you'll see what Daniel the prophet spoke. The sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. So it sounds like you're paying some attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into his house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for a pregnant woman and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be greater anguish than any time since that world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen people. He still has mercy on God's chosen people. So what that is summarizing is, first 3.5 years, they're in the temple, they're worshiping. Then the Antichrist breaks his treaty with them, and they are forced to flee the last half of this tribulation. And Satan, angered because he gets kicked out of heaven, the heavenly realms, he focuses his anger on Israel, who gave birth to Christ, who brought his defeat. And now he knows his time is short. So that's what he's facing. So this gives a spiritual picture of Michael and the angels basically battling out in heaven, the heavens. When Satan first rebelled, you saw that in that scripture saying he took a tail and took a third of the stars with him. He took a third of the angels, and they became what we call demons nowadays. Satan and his angels lose and are cast out of heaven onto earth. And then, of course, the only way you can defeat the enemy, is still true today, and will be then, is by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. That's the only way. That's the only way we can defeat him today, isn't it? By the blood of the Lamb and the word of his testimony. Now, I just want to share with you, there's a little theology in this. I want to make sure this is clear. This is theology. There's kind of, when the Bible refers to heavens, it's kind of like judgment. The word judgment, it can refer to judging someone's worth, a chronos judgment, and we can't cannot do that. We are not to judge someone else's worth, but we can judge their fruit. So when the word judgment is used, it's kind of used in different ways. So is the word heaven when it's in the Bible. You kind of got to look at the context and how heaven is used when you kind of look at it. See, there's kind of three different heavens when the Bible refers to it. The first, I call it the third heaven, is what we see in the atmosphere, the air. That's the one we can see. Like Psalms 19, 3-6 tells you this. Without speech or language, without a sound to be heard, their voice has gone out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. Basically, what you see in creation speaks of God all the time. In the heavens, he has pitched a tent for the sun. That's the sun that warms our sky. Like a bridegroom emerging from his chamber, like a champion rejoicing to run the course. It rises at one end of the heavens and runs its circuit to the other. It's talking about day and night, never end. We talked about that in Sunday school, didn't we? Kind of convincing. See, that's referring to the heavens we can see. So you got to look at the context when it speaks of heaven. Because there's a second heaven, the space in between the first and the third heaven. That's where the sun dwells, and Jupiter and all this other stuff. That's where the Satan demons are dwelling right now. They're fighting up there. Remember, the archangels are fighting to get prayers answered to us. We saw that in the Old Testament. Well, it took us 20 days to get here because there was a heavenly war going on. So there's a heavenly war going on in these heavens right here. And they're fighting up there. One of these days, though, Satan and all his angels are going to get kicked out of that realm and down to here on earth. And that happens in the tribulation time. But there's the highest heaven. That's the one we're all familiar with, the first heaven. That's where God dwells, his throne is. That's where he reigns and rules the universe. 2 Chronicles 6:18 tells us this. But will God indeed dwell with man upon the earth? Even heaven, the highest heaven, cannot contain you, much less the temple I have built. So God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. So he's not confined just to the highest heaven. So kind of look in context in the Bible when it speaks of heaven. You can talk about what you can see. You can talk about the spans in between. That's where the war is taking off. So when you're looking at, well, how can Satan be up in heaven fighting God? Isn't he already kicked out? He's kicked out of the highest heaven. But he's still up there fighting and accusing us right now. But he'll be dealt with a final blow later on. That's what chapter 12 is talking about. It's talking about how Christ, when he was crucified, basically defeated the enemy. And he's losing the battle, and he knows it up there. And it's just a battle's going on. So let's read the last part of Revelation 12:12-14. Therefore rejoice, O heavens. So they get to rejoice. And you who live in the heavens, rejoice. But terror will come on the earth and the sea. For the devil has come down to you in great anger, knowing that he has little time. When the dragon realized that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle, so she could fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness. So in the last 3.5 years, God has prepared a place for Israel to hide. There she would be cared for and protected from the dragon for a time, times half a time. That's 3.5 Jewish years. Reading on with it. Then the dragon tried to drown the woman with a flood of water and flowed from his mouth. Now that you'll have to ask God about, and we'll see what happens in Revelation. But the earth helped her by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that gushed out from the mouth of the dragon. And the dragon was angry at the woman and declared war against the rest of her children, all who keeps God's commandments and maintain their testimony for Jesus. Then the dragon took a stand on the shore beside the sea. At the Armageddon, when that happens. So what that is saying, that's a spiritual battle that happens on earth. There's rejoicing in heaven, woe to the earth. That happens in the last 3.5 years of tribulation. He persecutes Israel. He goes after her. That's why they don't have time to go back and get anything. They got to flee. They got to run. Because this happens suddenly, all of a sudden. Israel is hidden, though, from the persecution. But not everyone, I guess, makes it. Because he begins a war with the remnant of Israel that didn't run or went back and got the coat or whatever. And then the war with the remaining Christians on the earth. That's who he chooses his anger on. So it's not a good time for them. So that was Revelation 12. A lot of people go through it and just kind of, man, I don't know what that all is. I just want to go through your fill-ins. Number 2, your fill-in is the picture of earth from the past. And then number 5, your fill-ins is John showing what happens on earth. So those are your fill-ins for that chapter. Now we might go on to chapter 13. Was there any questions in that chapter? We're doing a little different format. This is more of a teaching than a
John
preaching.
is what? What did you say about John?
This, number 5, the spiritual picture given to John showing what happens on earth when Satan is cast down. That's your fill-in. So, see, you can get a lot from that chapter, but you got to take time to read it. That's what I'm trying to do, is show you can read Revelation. Just take time to go through it, not just, but you got to have some help sometimes. That's what I noticed. So, let's get out of this. We'll go to chapter 13. Now, a lot of people like chapter 13 because it has a lot of information on the enemy's camp. So let's go there. I got to break this up because it gets too big. I can't find stuff. So we'll go to 13. This, of course, is another informational chapter. So we're expounding on a person, place, or event. So let's go. As I said, this is an informational. The intermission kind of continues. And to understand what's going on in this chapter, you need to understand a few keys. But I'll read Revelation 13, 1 through 2 with you right now. So you can see it's talking about the dragon, or beast, about the same thing. Then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. It had 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns on its horns. Sounds pretty ugly to me. And written on the head were names that blaspheme God. This beast looked like a leopard, but it had feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave the beast his power and throne of great authority. So what is the beast? When you look, these are the keys to understanding what the beast is. When you see sea of people, always equals people in the Bible. The beast is the satanic system, that's your fill-in, under B, involving people. So basically, we'll reference Revelation 17, 8 through 14. That's what kind of defines it. It's basically government, commerce, military, and religion. Those are the systems involved in any government, and basically any empire. But this one, it's led by the Antichrist and the false prophet. That's who leads this. So to understand that, I'm not saying what the beast is. 17, I'm jumping to chapter 17, defines what this beast is, so you can go back to 13 and understand what it's talking about. Excuse me, 17, 7 through 14. Why are you so amazed, the angel asked? I will tell you the mystery of this woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns on which she sits. The beast you saw was once alive, but isn't now, and yet he will soon come out of the bottomless pit and go into eternal destruction. And the people who belong to this world, whose names are not written in the book of life before the world is made, will be amazed at the reappearance of the beast who died. Now, I want you to understand the people he's talking about. He's talking about the ones whose name's not in the book of life. Ephesians 1, 4 through 5 tells you who these people are. Just as he chose us from before the foundation of the world, that he should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to adoption by sons by Christ himself, according to the good pleasure of his will. Now, one thing I want you to understand when that verse is said, God is not creating evil souls and good souls up in heaven. They're all good. But he also gives them free will. So he knows some are going to reject, and he some are going to accept. He already knows. That's the thing. That probably hurts his heart to send those people down. But when you give free will, it gets messy down here. So that's what he's talking about. And these are the people who reject Christ, is what he's talking about. The free will. Revelation kind of calls you to understanding what the 7 heads are. The beast represents 7 hills. Where the ruin. Okay, let's read 7:14. Continue. This calls for a mind with understanding. The 7 heads of the beast represent the 7 hills where the woman rules. They also represent 7 kings. 5 kings have already fallen. The 6th now reigns, and the 7th is yet to come. But his reign will be brief. So what this is referring to is confirmed in Daniel. Is 5 empires have fallen. 1 empire reigns at the time of John. What's that? The Roman Empire, the one who crucified Christ. 1 empire is yet to come. So there's 7 heads or 7 beasts. They prophesied for a long time. Back in Daniel, back in John and Revelation. They prophesied this for many years. Let's continue on with the verse. The scarlet beast that was, but is no longer, is the 8th king. He is like the other 7, and he too is headed for destruction. The 10 horns of the beast are 10 kings who have not yet risen to power. They will be appointed to their kingdoms for one brief moment to reign with the beast. They will all agree to give him the power and authority. Together they will go to war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will defeat them because he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and is called and chosen, and faithful ones will be with him. So that's just telling you, they're defeated already. So here's the parts of the beast. If you look at the Bible, the 7 heads are the 7 great empires. They're satanic systems of government called empires. And I'll show you what those empires have been. 5 have fallen, 1 is fallen at John's time, and then 1 will come. The 10 horns are what? 10 nations. The 10 crowns are the leaders of those nations. Of course, we know who the mouth of the beast is, the Antichrist. And this is verified in Daniel. Daniel also had a vision of the 7 empires, but this is way back when. This is before even the Roman Empire. This was during Nebuchadnezzar's time. In Daniel, he had a vision of all these empires, but he only had the 4. In your vision, Your Majesty, you saw standing before you. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he was frightened. Daniel had to interpret it for him. This is what this is. In your vision, Your Majesty, you saw standing before you a huge shining statue of a man. It was frightening sight. The head of the statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were like a combination of iron and baked clay. Continuing on, as you watched, a rock was cut from a mountain, but not by human hands. It struck the feet in iron and clay, smashing them to bits. The whole statue was crushed into small pieces. The iron, clay, bronze, and silver and gold were the pieces. Then the wind blew them away without a trace, like chaff on threshing floor. But the rock that knocked the statue down became a great mountain that covered the whole earth. That's Christ. So you see, the empire systems are finally smashed once and for all. No one can blow it into the wind. Can we say amen to that?
Yes, amen.
Continuing on in Daniel, but after the kings come to an end, another kingdom inferior to yours will rise to take your place. Now he's talking about Nebuchadnezzar. After that kingdom has fallen, yet a third kingdom, represented by bronze, he's talking about the individual parts of it, rise to rule. From the first kingdom, there will be a 4th one as strong as iron. Of course, what was the Iron Empire? The Roman Empire. It was called the Iron, Cast of Iron. That kingdom will smash and crush all previous empires, just as iron smashes and crushes everything it strikes. So, see, the Bible prophesied all these empires accurately, even before they came about. So that's what's amazing about prophecy, how accurate it is. Daniel 9, 39 and 43. The feet and toes you saw were a combination of iron and baked clay, showing that this kingdom will be divided like iron mixed with clay. It will have some strength of iron, but while some parts of it will be as strong as iron, other parts will be as weak as clay. The mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron and clay don't mix well. So you can see the last empire isn't what it's all made out to be. Even though it's one of the most feared and dreaded ones coming, it has its issues. So just kind of look at it. So you kind of understand, based on history we've had, the empires Daniel talked about, John talked about. So you see, Daniel, those Egyptian and Assyrian empire already existed. So his dream was about something in the future. John talked about all of them, about 7 empires. So here's the empires we're talking about. Remember the Egyptian empire? That fell. The Assyrian empire, that's Daniel's prophecies. The Babylonian, that's during Daniel's time. He was in power, Nebuchadnezzar. But then he fell, and smaller empires came. They were kind of like the Persian Empire. That's the silver arms, based on history. This is history, folks. But the Bible predicted these. The Greece Empire, belly and brass thighs. Then came the Roman Empire. Who could predict that it would be called the iron? But it's the last empire that existed. Once it fell, we haven't had an empire, have we? There is some future empire made of iron and clay coming up. And we saw that the stone that destroys these empires is Jesus Christ. That's your other fill-in on that chapter 13 under D. So I found a picture of it. This is Daniel's dream. You can see the statue has a gold head. That was Nebuchadnezzar's. The chest and arms of silver was the Persians. And then the belly, around the belly there was the Greece Empire. The legs of iron are basically Rome. But then the toes and stuff are basically a weak empire restored from Rome. That's what they're called. That's an opinion. I'm going to show you that. It's a revived Roman Empire. And of course, the crushing rock that destroys these systems is God's kingdom. So I saw that picture. Maybe that would help you see it visually, instead of words. And we see in John, he said 5 empires have already fallen. We saw those 5. We saw the Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, all the way down to Greece had fallen. And so the Roman Empire was in existence during John's time. Now this empire is one that's considered to be wounded to death and revived. Revelation 13:3 saw one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. The whole world marveled at the miracles and gave allegiance to the beast. So basically, people are talking about the Roman Empire reviving itself, the great empire. Now that's an opinion. I'll leave you guys to decide on that. Daniel 2:44 through 45. During the reigns of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed or conquered. See, this is what gets us excited. It will crush all these kingdoms into nothingness, and it will stand forever. That is the meaning of the rock cut from the mountain, though not by human hands, that crushed to pieces the statue of iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold. The great God has shown the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and the meaning is certain. So even Daniel told him what was about to happen. A great rock was going to come and destroy all these empires, including his. He probably wasn't too happy, was it? His empire was coming down. So Christ is a stone that cast by God, and hits the feet of the statue that were made of iron and clay and entered the empire systems. There is only one empire left to rise before the system is totally destroyed. That's something you need to share with people. Just one more empire come. And in Daniel's interpretation of the dream, he saw that it's a mix of iron and clay. That's your other fill-in. On I, it's mixed of iron and clay. Its legs were iron, its feet were like a combination of iron made from clay. That's not a very good combination, is it? Can you imagine trying to build a bridge and have a little bit of iron and clay in there? What do you think will happen? It will fall down. So the empire is described here in Revelation 17:8. The beast you saw was once alive, but is now. And yet he will soon come up out of the bottomless pit and go into eternal destruction. And the people who belong to this world, whose names are not written in the book of life, before the world is made, will be amazed at the appearance of this beast. So when you see this, it's kind of confusing. When you see this, when they talk about this beast as was, is, and he's trying to, basically imitate God is what he's trying to do. Was, is to come, is what he does. But the empire in 17:8, as you see, goes into perdition, is complete loss of soul, as hell. So the phrase beast that was not yet to come is basically some type of revived empire. And people call it the revived Roman Empire. What it's going to look like, who knows? But it's going to be an empire that man will have to deal with. And many have tried to build empires, haven't they? We've had Napoleon, we had Hitler, but they never succeeded to the extent of Rome and the other ones. So we've had many people try, but we haven't had that final empire yet. So we have some future empire, revived Roman Empire, that's your other fill-in, on an opinion. I just want to make you understand this is an opinion. Here's what someone threw out one day. So whatever you want to decide, I leave it to you. This takes a higher pay grade than me. Opinion is the EU, divided into 10 kingdoms, the Antichrist rebuilding the Roman Empire. Here's the opinion, or the wounded head being healed in Revelation 13 is the Antichrist. Now this is another opinion. Some think that the Antichrist dies and is resurrected when Satan comes into him, and then he fools the nations that he is God risen. So those are several opinions out there. Take them or leave them. Don't make them doctrine. All right, never do that. The way I teach Revelation is, as long as you believe Christ is returning, we can have fun. Anyone else wants to share an opinion? Please do. Always welcome. But we don't make them doctrine. But we know the beast comes out of the sea of people having 7 heads, 10 horns, 10 crowns, with blasphemy written on his hand. So we know 10 kings receive power for a short time. So whatever kingdoms, however they're divided, there's 10 of them. We know that. But you know what happened? They have their troubles. 3 horns of the king shall rebel and be defeated. So he's not having, the Antichrist isn't having a big old ball. 3 of those kingdoms, you'll see later, gets defeated. He has to send out these great magicians or whatever to bring him into line. Daniel 7:15-28. I, Daniel, was troubled by all I've seen. By this vision terrified. Can you imagine seeing that vision? So I approached one of those standing beside the throne and asked him, what does it all meant? He explained to me this like this. These 4 huge beasts represents 4 kingdoms that will rise from the earth. But in the end, the Holy Most High will be given the kingdom and will rule forever and ever. So basically he's summarizing it. These 4 empires will come, the last 4, one's still yet to come, but hey, the Most High is coming, and his kingdom will rule forever and ever. So we don't have to worry about that. I think I'll stop there, because then we get into like what people like to understand as the mark of the beast and all that stuff in chapters. And I'll save that for later on. Oh, you got thousands of opinions out there what the mark of the beast is. I'll share just a few of them. But don't get wrapped up into opinions. And don't get lost in Revelation. One thing I want you guys to picture is God is coming back. And during this time of great tribulation, he is trying to reach people. That's the main thing I want you to see in Revelation. He has the 144,000 sealed. They're having a great revival. Millions are brought to heaven. He's got the 2 witnesses out there. And then even at the end, when there's no one left here on the earth, he sends the angels
out to minister. He's always reaching out to people, and we need to do the same. I just want to make you aware of so you don't ever get someone come teach you Revelation saying, well, you got to sell everything, all this other stuff. Ignore that stuff. You know, got to get ready for Christ's coming. You need to get rid of stuff. It's going to be burnt up. You know, if you believe he's coming, what do you need the stuff for? So that's what I ask. They want you to sell everything and give it to them. Don't fall for it. Only thing you need to be doing is be about the master's business. Telling people about Christ and sharing the message. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to be prepared. Just have your heart prepared. As Christ, Lord and Savior. That's all you got to do. So don't let these people that teach Revelation say, well, you got to prep, you got to do all this stuff. No. God will take care of it. Now, if God tells you to do something, do it. But, you know, whether it's prepping or whatever, but don't get wrapped up in it. And don't get lost in Revelation. I want to share it with you so you share it with others. So you say, hey, there is a time coming when it's not going to be so nice down here. So get ready. I think that's what Revelation is more used for, is to help people understand, hey, God is God that judges. He is a loving God, but he's also a just. And he has to judge. He doesn't like judging. Who likes to discipline their kids? I don't see no hands. God doesn't like to do it either, but he loves us enough. He loves you enough to discipline you and help you grow and mature. That's what he's doing to his creation in Revelation. He loves his creation enough. He will discipline it and adjust. Any questions so far? Are you getting anything out of Revelation? Understanding a little bit better? So it's not such a big mystery. I know when I first read the book, I'm going, oh my. Until someone actually took time and taught it and just used scripture and not a bunch of, okay, this is going to happen. You know, I like these charts to say, oh, this is going to happen. But, you know, God has his own timing and his own way of doing things. I can just tell you what scripture upon scripture takes to. That's all I want to share. I'm not going to put some bar line that God has to follow out there. How many knows he's not going to follow my bar line or anyone else's? He's going to do. But he's prophesied. He said what he's going to do. So just be aware of what he said he's going to do. That's the main thing. Well, let's get ready to eat.